line cuts down along the track, and then you can just see it settling in all through the pack. Now it's going to be the racing in the mid-pack. I think that was actually Nathan Allen that didn't get quite a good run, and Riley Jones, it might have been, that's looking to fight him, and now they'll settle themselves in, all single-filed out. Look at that high entry into turn number 3. They're trying to look after their tires. That's what that does as well. They're not forcing the cars to do anything, and Harris is going to have a go here. Sends it deep, deep on the brakes, and it's actually going to be Brian that lets him have it. So it's going to be Daniel Harris that leads us back to lap number 2 and down the back stretch for the second time. This is Paul Brian maybe saving a little bit of fuel, trying to extend the life of these tires a lot further. Yellow flags out for the first time tonight. Car at the tail end of the field is
we've got at least it looks like Jeremy Bush and might have pushed Callum Hodgkinson off the road as well. We're going to get quick action replay thanks to DSL Welding Services.
Oh! I don't think they knew they were 3 wide there.
No, that has caused quite a decent crash. So did they make it through that first lap?
They did. They survived the first lap. That's lap number 2 coming down to turn number 1 for lap number 2. So
well done, guys. That's a great improvement over the first season, first round.
That's who's inside. I'm actually curious. So we're 3 wide in the middle of the pack, trying to sort themselves out coming through there. Taker's on pit lane. No one's actually come down for a splash top up of the fuel. If I'm at the tail end of the field here, I'm going a splash of fuel. So.
Oh, would you pull in now and get a bit of a splash and dash while you've got the time?
I mean, there's no reason not to. You're already at the back end of the pack, so that's already where it is. So it's actually Miles Burgess that was actually on the inside of Jeremy Bush. And he actually wasn't there. He was sort of had his nose there. He got a lot of damage from lap number 1. So a lot of things have happened to Miles Burgess. Things haven't gone his way.
No, definitely not. There was we saw about 4 or 5 guys get caught up in that little incident, which, you know, if it was further to the front of the pack, we probably could have had a complete and utter field wipeout with an incident like that. Bounce off the wall and straight back into the field, so tricky racing.
It's actually really tricky to get these cars. So I went back and had a look at where the damage from Miles Burgess actually came from. It's not actually from the incident with Jeremy Bush. It's actually from the initial jump. So these cars, the trucks are very, very difficult to get rolling. Don't have a lot of traction initially. They can kick sideways. That looks like that's the case with Jeremy Bush. That's actually where the damage to Miles Burgess came from. He just sort of got a really, really good launch and wasn't really sure. He's actually ended up making contact with the rear bumper of Glenn McLeod. McLeod was having a great run. McLeod actually got loose actually off of turn 4 as well, so we checked up Jeremy Bush, and that's what enabled the overlap, because it looked like it was a really weird incident, sort of actually a multi-layered incident. This is something Racing Control's got to have a look at.
Oh. Worth going back and have a quick look live on streaming?
May as well. We've got a caution. That's the benefit.
We do have a caution. We do have a caution. So we can probably
have a look at the run here.
Just
if you
a little bit.
Yeah, have a look at Glenn McLeod is that blue car up ahead with the 84 on the side of it. Very loose, car's a little bit sideways coming on the turn of the floor. Jeremy Bush is trying to look after himself. Remember what I said, keep yourself alive into that late race. So he just checks up a little bit, Burgess gets underneath him. I don't think Bush expected him to be there, and that's just what it is.
That is oval racing for you, isn't it?
I mean, they were 3 wide there. It's quite tricky, and I mean, I don't think Burgess knew that he was 3 wide as well, because he's only got the nose in there. The iRacing spotter and the way that all that works is it only sort of calls it when you specifically are 2 to 3 wide with somebody else. So if your nose is only alongside one other car, and that car's got a car to the outside of his nose, he knows that he's 3 wide, he knows that he's got a car underneath his rear bumper and a car on the outside of his front bumper, but nobody else will know that they're 3 wide.
Yeah, right. I did try and do a bit of oval racing again.
Oh, here we go. This should be good.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good. I used to do quite well in the Dragonrc Cup, and then for some reason, I don't know, I think it was my setup. Every time I turned a little bit left, my whole car would just want to leave the track. Yeah, I kept blaming cold tyres too, so.
The Indy cars actually suffer from cold tyres quite a lot. Stock cars is not necessarily cold tyres they really suffer from. It's more the rear will rotate on cold tyres, whereas Indy cars tend to push, or the
We are back and the restart is underway. We are lap 7 of 100 after a small incident at the start of lap 2. We're going to try and keep on board with as many of these cars as possible so we can see everything that's happening across the grid. Try and keep an eye on all the action tonight.
We got cameras everywhere. We got them in the sky, man. That one's hanging off the bottom from wind for sure.
Oh, this is my favourite chopper team.
That's the fastest drone in existence. Fastest lap of the race, Daniel Harris is actually just on a 29.471. So remember what I said at the very beginning? You know, you want to look after these guys, you want to conserve them. Harris isn't. He's just going for it. He's a long way off the track.
He's trying to make up for that quitting out on us last week, right?
He must have heard the comments when you said it, things you said about him. But, you know, that's going to play on his mindset tonight. How does he set himself up? How does he approach the racing? I said to him, look, man, he come in and he asked me for a couple tips prior to the race tonight. And I said, look, it's all about tyre conservation. There's a slow car actually at the back end of the pack. I noticed somebody going backwards. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another amazing broadcast of the NASCAR Truck Series tonight, live from Kentucky. Well, the secret to success, well, for Kentucky Fried Chicken anyway, is 11 secret herbs and spices. Tonight, it's going to be 11 secret herbs, pit stops, spices, steering ratios, gearing ratios, and tire saving tactics, and tall order if you're a driver, but I'm sure we will find another worthy recipient of the Victor's Trophy at the end of tonight's proceedings. Last time out, we were missing our series leader for the first time this season. Lachlan Capel was not here to take the green flag. He had other commitments, so Paul Bryan, our winner of the Eldora Dirt Round, manages to jump his way into the ascendancy. He's now leading the championship, but it's only 8 points back to the competition. I believe it's Braden Martin who might have moved his way up into second place, or at least onto the podium in terms of the overall finishing order. But it's quite tightly fought up at the top, as all of a sudden, once again, we end up with a pack that's strongly converging. In fact, I was actually wrong. It's Hayden Norris who'll move his way into P number 2. So it's 288 points for Paul Bryan, 280 for Hayden Norris, and 2 points further back, Braden Martin with his first podium of the season. It's been a series of strong form for the Locked On Lads driver. Lachlan Capel, even after missing a round, sits only in P4. He's 15 points further back. Drop rounds, of course, to be applied as of yet. Glenn McLeod in the Send It Sim Sports entry rounds out the top 5, followed by Jeremy Bush, who had an incredibly strong showing out last time. Peter Morris in the Fishy Motorsports entry and host of the Sipometer. Matthew Skulls was, I believe, the guy that we finally figured out that we need to ask him about some sort of boat ramp or cats or dogs. You know what? We'll ask him about the whole kitchen sink if he manages to make it onto the podium. Luke Georgeson from the After Dark Sim Racing entry and Leon Williams are your top 10 at this point in time. The entire top 10 separated by a grand total of 65 points. Drop rounds to come. Qualifying now more than halfway through. In fact, we've got less than a minute and 30 seconds to go. Green flag pit stops could be the nature of tonight's track, and if you have a look, it's not quite an oval. I don't know if the Americans managed to mess up when they were trying to draw an oval, but I'm pretty sure that's not it. There's a little kink in the front stretch, and ladies and gentlemen, that's what we call a tri-oval. Yes, funny the way that triangles and ovals don't represent each other, but the Americans have still managed to find a way. Kentucky, it's got 2 massive big corners, 1 little kink on the front stretch. Drivers will be allowed to drop below the yellow line this week on the front stretch only, where they were not allowed down there last week, which is a Daytona ruling. It's a double yellow line. That means it's out of bounds. Single yellow line means you can drop down there. There's a couple tri-oval formats that will allow you to do it. Charlotte from earlier in the season, quad oval, 2 kinks in the front stretch. Has grass down there. Kind of can't do it. Here, you will be able to. And Hayden Norris might actually be practicing burnouts for what he hopes will be a P1 at the end of tonight's proceedings. Well, Daniel Weaver hasn't been here for a few rounds so far this season, manages to clamber his way onto a pole position with a 30.810. Paul Bryan sitting P number 1 in the championship will run it off. P number 2, Braden Martin running P3 in the championship, starts P number 3. How about that? Couldn't have scripted it better if he'd asked for it. Glenn McLeod starting to make his face known within the championship, slots on the outside of row number 2. Tom Neal, great showing last week, great showing. He's been trending upwards as the season has gone, off the inside of row number 3. Nathan Allen starting to show his colors as well. A few drivers have been improving as the season has progressed. Nathan Allen among those. And a move and a return away from the Man Up Sim Racing team. He's moved back to Velocity. So you'll see that potentially a little bit of mud in the water when it comes to the Man Up versus Velocity teams. Things did not settle well for those boys. They'll have to deal with it out on track, and we hope in the best format. Well, then again, will NASCAR Road Rage take over? We'll find out as the evening progresses. Jeremy Bush, another driver who's slowly started to creep his way forwards off the inside of row number 4. And Ryan Jones, I believe it is, off the outside of row number 4. Hayden Norris, Aaron Hayden is going to be off the inside of row number 5. Evan Horswell, last week's winner. What a huge result that was for him. He is going to be off the outside of row number 5. Finally, it's going to be a return to the series for Jacob Hughes, who will be off the inside of Hayden Norris, Peter Morris, and the Super Meter, all the way back in P13. John McHenry, nice qualifying attempt from him. He's going to be off of P14, less than half a second off the lead. Grant Matterford, another driver deep in the standings, deep in the hunt there, P15, separated by only 2 thousandths. Check this out. 31.372 for John McHenry, 31.375 for Grant Matterford, 31.377 for Gary Redcliffe alongside Grant Matterford. Leon Williams ended up on the podium last week when we spoke to him. Post-race penalty was cleared for Dylan DeBono, moved him back up into P3, but Leon Williams will be starting towards the tail end of the field, trying to settle it in. Darren Palmer off of P18, and finally running us out, not setting a time, is Christopher Thornton. Had a few issues last week out at Daytona, tried to settle it down, and as the sun starts to set, it seems it's a little bit like dinner time in Kentucky. Get that bucket of chicken ready, because somebody is going to be eating some at the end of this race. Somebody might be eating some in the first turn. Find out shortly. Pace car's going to roll around off of turn 3. And we're going to be set for racing. Track conditions here tonight, 27 degrees Celsius down on the asphalt. Nice and cool track temperatures. There's going to be 4 sets of tires used in the race, including the set these drivers will be starting on. 50% is the fuel limit, so about 37 liters in the tank. Green flag in the air, cars jumping on the accelerator, few trying to get a strong getaway to the high side, ready trying to make moves, and Braden Martin connects with the rear bumper of Daniel Weaver, trying to push him along. Bump drafting tactics from Daytona learned, bump drafting tactics from Daytona applied. He will get down to the inside of Paul Bryan on the runoff of turn number 2, and he does get a long way ahead, but Bryan's got the drafting support as Daniel Weaver trends towards the top side. Weaver thinking guys fighting each other the whole way through. That's going to work in his favor. Paul Bryan keeps the momentum on the high side of the track, longer way around the track, but that means that you can keep a little bit more momentum up, trying to make that work. Front stretch, it's a big turn. Cars scattering everywhere down the front stretch as we take a little bit of a look at the battling further back down the field. Great start for Jacob Hughes, looking to be a little bit aggressive straight out of the gate. Grabbed 1 spot over Evan Horswell. He's trying to make it 2 spots as he's going to follow Hayden Norris down the back stretch for the second time. Daniel Weaver's started to show a clean pair of heels up at the front of the field. Braden Martin has managed to slot into P2, and he's taken that position away from Paul Bryan. So Paul Bryan now getting assaulted by Tom Neal down on the inside of him. We'll see if he can clear him on the way into turn 1. Manages to cut him off, and that's an aggressive move from Paul Bryan there, but you're going to see a ton of that. Glenn McLeod now tries to get the run around the outside of Paul Bryan, and it's just a freight train as these cars slot themselves in. Nice and clean for the early running so far tonight. A little bit of field spread further back down, running around in P14. We'll pick that one up. Probably going to be Grant Matterford. Indeed it is. There's a little bit of a break in the pack around John McHenry on screen on the top side of things, and Grant Matterford probably wishing he had a teammate alongside of him. Lachlan Capel not making the grid here tonight either. So, it's going to be all about who bobbles first and who makes a mistake as this race continues. Blue car in the fence up there on the high line. I think that might have been Chris Thornton. Indeed, it was Chris Thornton that just caught a piece of the outside fence. Leon Williams will take the opportunity of a slow truck to try and dive to his inside and take that one away from him. Catches the apron, bobbles up a little bit, manages to avoid making contact with the car to his outside. Still looking to clear him on the way into turn 1. Going to hang around the outside is Chris Thornton, trying to save some tyre all the way up there. Grant Matterford will manage to slot in finally behind John McHenry, who completes the pass just ahead of these guys. And now Williams gets a huge run on him as Thornton starts to drift backwards just a little bit. Keep an eye off the nose of Leon Williams. The Pulse Racing entry of Grant Matterford gets all the way down low. You might even be able to hear it on board, but it's a lot of marbles, a lot of dirt, a lot of dust built up on the outside lane early on in the running of this one. As more trucks go up there, the more it'll probably clean it up. More grip will be available to these drivers on the high side. And have a look at the seam that's down there. A little bit of patching on the road down at the bottom of turn 1 and 2. Drivers trying to get themselves underneath that seam is where the best grip, the best traction, the best lap times can be found. Have a look at Williams, feed the wheel into it. Probably a little bit aggressive on the wheel. Listen for some tyre scrubbing through his right front as he picks the throttle back up. And the lap time's already starting to fall. 31.295 for our leader from Daniel Weaver. Paul Bryan manages to slot into P2. He's just pulled a 31.442. Braden Martin running a near identical lap time up towards the top end of town. And keep your eyes on Grant Matterford, just at a 31.726. Leon Williams with the 31.609, so making a 10th up. That lap, huge bubble there for Leon Williams. He's getting a little unsettled coming off of turn 2. Keep your eyes for the flames coming out of these trucks here tonight. They have to breathe the throttle coming down into turn number 3. That's what the flames are. Anytime they lift off the throttle, you see flames pop out the exhaust. The exhaust not located on the rear of these trucks. Those are stickers. You ever seen them? The exhaust's actually mounted on the side. I believe it's the exhausts are actually mounted on both sides. So you'll get to see the candle popping. And shows itself up quite well under the lights here as well. Time for a check-in on how the rubber's handling, how the suspension's handling. Not a lot of work here tonight. Nathan, do you know if that's the inside or the outside tyre for me? There's a right front tyre we're looking at. So you'll see the suspension load up on the way down into turn 1 here. Not working quite as hard as it normally would with aggressive changes, where it's nice sweeping changes like this. The suspension's really, really stable. This is the left front. So this is the unloaded tyre. The tyre that takes the least beating of the 4 around the car. So you can see that one's just sort of really unloaded. Spring's a little bit stretched out compared to the right front. Anyway, there we go. Quite smooth surface it is here at Kentucky. Not as many bumps. Bumps have been a big talking point from some of the races this season, particularly Pocono, the big bump on the entry to turn number 1. Saw that one from the live action camera shot with the suspension working. Might send these... Oh! Contact has been made! Car nearly in the infield, manages to hang on to it. Great racing all around. Didn't quite catch a number on that one, so we'll keep our eyes on that one. I believe it was, Aaron Hayden. So he'll lose a couple of spots there, and Jeremy Bush lifted out of the gas. That's separated these guys from the pack up ahead of them, so they've got to be a little bit careful that they don't drop too far back. But we will keep our eyes peeled. First little bit of biffo so far tonight. Braden Martin starting to go backwards, was trying to give a bump draft there onto the rear bumper of Glenn McLeod. Made contact, but the car was unloaded. That's where you saw the rear bumper kick sideways. Martin slowly going backwards in the early piece of things here. They may even have to use a little bit of brake at some point tonight. We've talked about how bad the brakes on these cars are. Down to the inside, Tom Neal looking to take the P3 away from Glenn McLeod. Set sail off to try and start catching up to Paul Bryan. Paul Bryan's just got around our leader, so new race leader. Paul Bryan, 32.092. Huge mistake must have come that lap from Daniel Weaver with a 33.095. 1 second and 3/1000ths of a second off the pace. So this will tell us more of what's going on. This will be the pass of the lead here. He's already slow heading down the back stretch. So something's already happened. Strong chance he might have called a piece of the wheel, a piece of the wall, and made it quite easy in the end for Paul Bryan. And that's the pack you can see out there in the rearview mirror. A long way back up the road. So a lot of work now for Tom Neal to start as he will begin the counterattack as he goes chasing down Daniel Weaver. And Weaver has run another slow lap. 0.4 of a second slower than Paul Bryan. So Bryan has looked after his tyres. He's been quite soft and spongy on them, and they're going to look after him. Look after your tyres, look after your machinery, and it looks after you on the long run. Don't forget, race fans, if there's somebody that you want to see a piece of tonight making their way around the Kentucky 1.5 mile speedway, don't forget to let us know, whether that be through Facebook chat, whether that be through our YouTube streams, or whether that be over on twitch.tv/SRWTV as well. Don't forget to drop a like, follow, subscribe on all of the social media platforms. Not just NASCAR truck racing coming your way, and indeed as this season starts to wind its way down, 3 races left in the season. Indeed, 3 races, 2.5 races, nearly, as we push our way through the night. So not much left. It is crunch time come the championship, so points will be a strong discussion point from week to week. And talking about strong discussion points from lap to lap, Paul Bryan continues to just set sail 0.3 of a second faster than Daniel Weaver at this point. And Daniel Weaver has now lost the draft from Paul Bryan, and Tom Neal starting to come back into his clutches as well. He's only 0.7 of a second behind our race leader at this point in time. So Weaver struggling. Something massively has gone wrong for Daniel Weaver. Was that a scuff mark on the front right, I wonder? Did he grab a piece of that outside barrier? The truck looks in good condition. I'm wondering if there's not a paint scratch. That'll tell us of something that maybe he's made contact with the outside barrier at some point in time. Well, we are now 16 laps completed as we start the 17th circuit of the lovely Kentucky Motor Speedway. Daniel Weaver will turn and make his way down the front stretch. So he is losing a ton of time to Daniel Weaver. I've just kept my eyes on Grant Matterford back in the pack as well. Grant Matterford's actually starting to make a huge charge, and Peter Morris involved in a heavy battle once again. Gets to the inside here. Peter Morris will take that spot away, so that's a great job by Peter Morris. And Jacob Hughes, the recipient of a little bit of an overtake there. Peter, if you're listening, take another sip, mate. That was beautiful work. You've looked after those tyres well, and now they're starting to look at you. Have a look at the fire. Somebody's got back to the gas very aggressively in the background. I wonder if that's Jeremy Bush. It is. He's had to bail out the throttle, and Grant Matterford will try and pick up some time on him. Hasn't made any time whatsoever, so that actually didn't cost Jeremy Bush too much time, but it might have cost him a lot of rubber on that front right tyre. We'll have to keep again an eye on seeing how that progresses. Opens up the steering. Matterford's got a huge run here. Jacob Hughes starting to struggle on tyres. Matterford to the inside here. He'll take it away on the entry to turn number 3. Not quite there. Gets back to the gas and he'll complete the pass in the DSL Welding Series timing tower. Gets updated now. Grant Matterford moves his way up to P11 and starting to set his eyes once again on the next car in line. Might be Peter Morris. Peter Morris, keep an eye on your rearview mirror. I know he's always listening. Nathan just said in the background. So Mr. Howard is unfortunately a strong victim of the man flu. Somebody coming to pit lane already. It's Daniel Weaver has already committed. 20 laps into this race. Leon Williams, I believe, is already committed to the pit lane. Few guys now coming down, so they're going to short pit here. They recognize that it's going to be a, 3-stop race? It's going to be a 3-stop race. So 4 sets of tires. They're going to use all 4 of them to get home. This is going to be a spicy meatball. Oh, yeah, look. You guys may not be able to hear Nathan Howard in the background, but he's got his producer voice on. Trust me, you don't want to hear it. Man, unfortunately, has managed to contract man flu, so man down. Even though we've got man up sim racing in here, no, this one's a man down. And not sim racing is Nathan Howard. Get better soon, buddy. Still manning the cameras for us. He's doing a phenomenal job here on Sim Racing World TV, and he will be manning the cameras once again tomorrow from midday Australian Eastern Standard Time. And another car to pit road. It's gonna be Chris Thornton. I think he might have missed pit road there. He got in. He did get in. Be interested to see if he picks himself up a pit lane entry penalty for an unsafe pit entry. That is, you have to generally follow the white lines that are there on the track to tell you where to come into the pit lane. Now the rest of the field is starting to say, we've got to come in here we're running out of fuel. Now, if they can get to lap 25 on fuel, that means that they're going to have enough fuel to do this race in 2 pit stops. For everyone else, short pitting may have been the go. If they recognize they couldn't get home, they split this race into 4. Well, one of the better ways to do it is probably to split it into 20-20-15 is probably going to be the fastest way to do it. But if they can get themselves home without that extra pit stop, it's going to be slow. It's going to be a huge risk. And indeed, race leader Paul Bryan has now pulled into the pit lane, and it's Braden Martin who's managed to go the extra lap. So a few cars that were dropping a long way off in the early running of things have gone long. And if you actually have a look, it's not just Braden Martin that's gone that extra lap, it's John McHenry as well. So green flag stops start to fly. This is one of the features of the series so far has been the number of green flag stops who's managed to get involved. Braden Martin comes in at the conclusion of lap 24. I think he is actually 1 lap shy on that stint of making it, which means he's going to be 3 laps shy come the tail end of the race. Now, guys have started pitting from, I think the earliest pit stop we saw was on lap number 20, and John McHenry misses his pit booth. That's important. That's going to cost him about a second of race time. It's just in the background of the shot. Nathan's not enjoying the fact that he missed probably a crucial moment in the race. He's generally quite good on the cameras. Daniel Weaver was one of the early guys to elect to come down pit road. He's managed to catch and overtake with those tyres on for a fair bit longer. I believe that's Paul Bryan that's directly ahead of him. So now he'll set the eyes further down the road. He realises he didn't have the overall pace to stick with Bryan, and he went for the undercuts. Worked in his favour. If Paul Bryan does have to do that extra splash and dash to get home, look for Daniel Weaver's strategy. If we go green flag to green flag to checkered flag, Daniel Weaver has got himself a humdinger of a strategy. We get a caution anywhere in the middle, and all of a sudden, Daniel Weaver's strategy is out the window. He will be one of the weakest cars in the field because he will not have a spare set of tyres. Grant Matterford just on his way out of pit lane at the moment. That looks like he will indeed make the distance on just the 2 stops. So a few guys in the mix. We'll start to take a look up and down the field. I'm seeing perhaps 3 or 4 cars that would be able to make it without the extra stop. Now, whether or not the pace disadvantage from having to fuel save a fair bit will come into things, well, NASCAR will decide that one. Don't forget, if they do pit and they do use that extra set of fresh tyres, they've got to catch and pass for leaders, or they could be trapped a lap down should that caution flag fly. That was a story all the way back at the start of the season, back in Charlotte. If you think back all of those weeks ago, was that 8 weeks, 7 weeks ago now? 8 weeks ago now, when we kicked this thing off for the first time, and these sim racers took to the track with only left turns for most of them was the first time they'd ever done that. And have a look at them now. Peter Morris now will look to make that move to the outside. Manages to get the move done, I believe. Although that looks like that's a lapped car, actually, that he's managed to make his way by. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And now he'll get the nose down in here underneath the car directly ahead of him. Couple packs starting to form. First, second, third, and fourth are all very close together on the racetrack. Paul Bryan very close to Hayden Norris, Daniel Weaver, and Tom Neal. These guys are all tied up. Jeremy Bush, you can see on your screen at the moment, is racing quite heavily in that pack. I'll tell you what, Grant Matterford is getting on it. Dives below the 7 machine of Gary Redcliffe on his way to turn number 1. But this pack is probably where we want to keep an eye on it. Peter Morris, he has got the bit between his teeth, and he is trying to get that foot down. He wants to go forwards, not backwards, sideways, not upwards. And constantly swirling, because he's a NASCAR driver. Recruiting, drivers and builders. I wonder who's recruiting from the rear bumper of Nathan Allen. I believe that's actually a Velocity Sim Racing livery, and they're recruiting drivers and builders for their setup shops. So if you do build setups and know that you're quite good at them, it's worth the reach out. Now down to the inside, Peter Morris will manage to get the clear on Nathan Allen. At this point in time, Nathan Allen was one of the earliest takers on that pit stop, so he's made a lot of time up in the early running, and I mean a lot of time up as well, because our qualifying times were in the 30-second mark, and the tail end of the stints on the long run here was 33.5, so losing 2.5 seconds in terms of that tyre fall off. That's a lot of time. So he managed to make that up in terms of the 3 or 4 laps worth of getting fresher tyres on Suda. Now he's got to pay the price for the rest of the run as he's got the oldest tyres on out of that group. Hayden Norris starting to cut his way through the field and has done so very, very successfully. Tom Neal is going to, I believe, send it to his outside. He's going to want to try and make use of those tyres. And Hayden Norris came in on lap 22. Tom Neal on lap 24, actually on the same lap as Paul Bryan. So Paul Bryan had a very slow stop, and Tom Neal made a lot of ground up within a second of the race leader. This battle is going on. Neal will finally get clear, and Daniel Weaver starts to drift back just a little bit. Still only half a second back from Tom Neal, so he'll keep himself in contention. Now, how about this battle from Grant Matterford? He's not going anywhere, I tell you. He's got Jeremy Bush and Peter Morris directly ahead of him. So we'll see if the Pulse Racing team driver of Grant Matterford can start to make a run. And indeed, he's got a huge head of steam here. Looks to go to the inside of Jeremy Bush. Jeremy Bush will block that one off. Sends it deep into the corner. He's going to drift on up, and Matterford takes the high side, keeps the momentum, running it right up and around the top. The marble's starting to form up there. He had to keep it half a car length off the wall. There would have been no grip whatsoever. Now he's got to run on Peter Morris. Will he be able to send it around the outside on the run into turn number 1? Lifts just slightly to get the car rotated. Morris checks up just a little bit on the entry to turn number 1, and all of a sudden, have a look in the rearview mirror, because Jeremy Bush is not done with this one. He's going to send it all the way down to the bottom of the racetrack once more. Morris tries to arc the corner, looks after the tyres, tries to keep the momentum up. He drifts up to the high side as he tries to get back into the gas quite aggressively, and all of a sudden, Matterford has got the run once more. But don't count out Jeremy Bush out the rearview mirror, and Aaron Hayden has gone 1 lap down. I'd say he's gotten a pit lane entry penalty for speeding on the way into pit lane. He's fallen off the lead lap. That's the car directly ahead of Peter Morris. And here comes Matterford once more with the draft. Gets to the rear bumper of Morris. Shows the nose on the low side. Is Morris going to defend it? Morris will hold around the outside. Matterford sends it very deep. Rotates the car nicely. Keeps it to the bottom of the racetrack. It's a tricky decision. Do you let the car flow up the hill here and you get to pick the momentum back up, or do you take the shorter way around the racetrack? And Matterford has done very well to keep that 79 truck on the bottom of the track, and he takes away the spot. Morris starting to feel the burn that is of tyres, and he gets a little bit loose by the look of things there on the exit of turn number 2. Time to check in with our leaders, and Braden Martin starting to make a resurgence. Remember, he's got one of the freshest sets of tyres, so he's going to be one of the fastest cars in the field. Normally, you don't want to do that if you're racing a Formula 1 car. Well, these aren't Formula 1 cars, and indeed they can drive side by side most of the lap, and overtaking's a lot easier. So the undercut and the overcut definitely works quite well. Car to the high side there, I think that's Leon Williams will get a piece of the wall. So he'll leave a little stripe of the Locked On Lads Racing entry up off of turn at number 4 at Kentucky, and he'll let his teammate get the move done on Hayden Norris. So Braden Martin, sitting P3 in the championship, moves to P3 on the racing circuit. And remember, he is in with a shot of making this thing with only 2 stops, so he is a stop potentially better than everyone else around him. So he doesn't need to be the quickest car on the track, he just needs to make a fuel number. Having a look at our track map at this point in time, there's a big gap there from turn number 1 at this point in time, all the way back to start and finish line. But other than that, the track is stacked with cars in every which way. Our leader has just made an overtake on lapped cars. So that's Paul Bryan once again continuing his strong run. Next to no pace differential between himself and Tom Neal. Lap times nearly identical that last time by, so that battle's going to wage itself all night long, and Tom Neal seems to be starting to get the benefit of those tyres. It took him a fair while, but he's settling in now. Braden Martin, fastest car on track at this point in time, so keep your eyes on Martin. He is coming. It's just a matter of when, not if. McHenry sends it to the bottom of the racetrack, tries to get the move done on the run into T number 1. Is that Nathan Allen going slow on his outside? That's interesting. Allen was a lot further up than that, I thought. But anyway, Nathan Allen starting to struggle and drift back. No, that might have been a lap truck, actually, because Nathan Allen's about 0.8 of a second further back up the road based upon that timing screen. Oh, it is Nathan Allen. I'm blind. Just taking a look at the fuel calculator. Yeah, so there you go. Nathan Allen was one of the first takers on those tyres. He burned the best out of them very, very early on. Another car in the pits. I believe Leon Williams has just made his way through pit road, and Christopher Thornton might have been on pit road that time. I know it's just Leon Williams. So the Locked On Lads, podcast, liveried cars, starting to throw up a little bit of a strategy differential. Hayden Norris fighting quite hard for position with Jeremy here as... So the thing is, when you have about half the field in terms of cars, you're going to end up on the screen all the time in the Locked On Lads entries. They do show up a lot. Normally it's the Fishy Motorsports cars that cover the field with the number of entries that they've got entered. No, not so in the Sim Racing World Truck Series. Paul Bryan, time for a check-in the top end of town. Paul Bryan leads the way by 1.3 seconds at this point in time. Tom Neal is trying his absolute darndest to go after him. And I tell you what, Braden Martin has now put 1.4 seconds over the next entry of the 20 machine of Hayden, and he sends it deep onto the inside. I don't think he was expecting that one. Was the After Dark entry of Tom Neal. Escorts him wide without contact. Great move, Braden Martin. He'll take away P number 2. And remember, whilst they're only separated by 1.4 seconds on the track, comes down to when do they do their last pit stop and have they got enough gas to get home without that. If they come down for a splash, they're going to be on old tyres the whole way to the end, which means that Braden Martin, if he pits later, will have fresh rubber all the way to the end of the motor race if he's just coming down for a splash dash. So something to keep our eyes on. Cars starting to make their second round of pit stops. You can see them dropping off on the left-hand side of screen. Daniel Weaver, Hayden Norris, Gary Redcliffe. 3 cars in the pit lane as it currently stands. Now, critical factor here for Glenn McLeod. Does he pull the truck up nice and cleanly? Yes, looks like he made pit road speed. There'll be no issues there. Great job by Glenn McLeod. Started this season with a fair few teammates. Has not had many teammates from any of the races. Unfortunately, a few of the guys from his team have had to not make an attendance every round this season. They've had other commitments come up. Brad Klink amongst them. So he'll be looking for a few more teammates heading on to next season. We've got to keep our eyes at this point in time on Braden Martin because he's now within 0.6 of a second of the race leader and going hard. He might just be pulling Tom Neal along with him. Punching the hole in the air at this point in time. And indeed, where's the traffic situation? There's one car on the circuit directly ahead of Paul Bryan. And that's critical to know. If he comes up on lap traffic, I get the feeling, though, P16 at this point in time is Darren Parmenter. Might have made the second of his stops. Might have fresh tyres. Might be just starting to extend a fresh pair of heels. Martin to the high side. He'll try and flow through turn number 1. See how he opens the corner up. And get back to the throttle a lot earlier. So Paul Bryan made a huge advantage coming into the corner. Martin will pick it up on mid and exit. Car just up the road from them, I believe, is going to be... And Paul Bryan just said he might be coming to pit road. So Braden Martin will take control of the race at this point in time. He's been putting in great lap times. He's the fastest on track for those last couple of laps. Now everyone else will get in for that fresh rubber a little bit earlier. Lap 47 in the books. Starting lap 48. Those aren't nitrous bottles on the floor of Braden Martin's car. That's not his secret for success. And indeed, Braden Martin says, you know what, boys? I've made my advantage. We're coming to pit road early. You know, is there a bit of damage on the front left corner of that car? I think he's coming early because he might have made contact with Paul Bryan on his way to pit road. So that would explain the early pit stop because he's been forced into it, not because he wanted to get into it. So he'll grab the first of 2 fast repairs, or as they call them in a few different places, the spare car back over the wall. So not only a set of 4 tyres change, they'll bring a new car out into the garage and send him off with that one. So we'll lose about a second from doing the fast repair and get himself back out on the track. Grant Matterford now assumes the race lead. And why is that, you say? Well, Grant Matterford at this point in time is the only truck that's going to make it within one more pit stop. Everyone else has to do 2 stops to get home, and the racing's been green flagged so far. Will we see mistakes creep in? Who will jump into pit lane and try and get that stop done early? Peter Morris and Jeremy Bush both came to pit road that last time by. They're going to chase each other off of pit lane. So would have just been in the background as they come off. Sorry, that's turn 4 that we're coming off as Riley Jones goes head-to-head with Tom Neal. And Tom Neal, I think, came in on lap 48. Has lost a ton of time on pit lane. So he wants to get this move done as quickly as he possibly can. Sends it to the inside of Riley Jones here. And Jones might just let that one happen. Sometimes it is just the better way to go. It's faster for both of you. You burn up less tire, but sometimes you want the other guy to burn up some tire. You'll keep him down low as long as you possibly can. Not this time by. Grant Matterford finally makes his circulation through pit lane. It is on lap 50. He potentially can make it to the end. Big question mark over Grant Matterford. If he misses it, that whole strategy goes out the window and he has thrown it away. So we'll have to keep an eye on how that one develops. Now, should the caution flag fly late on in the run, he'll be one of the best placed trucks because he will get a free pit stop under caution. And he may trap several cars a lap down. He's going to have a lot of pace for the remainder of this stint. He will make time every single lap on just about every car on track. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Hayden Norris has managed to jump Paul Bryan. Paul Bryan, with that damage, has actually dropped a long way down. So with that poor pit lane entry for Paul Bryan, I think that's actually been his weakness, is getting the car into pit lane. But obviously it's risk versus reward with the pit lane entry. There's a man standing there with a speed gun, and if he doesn't like you, and if you look at him the wrong way, you might come off worse for wear. Paul Bryan taking caution to prevent that. What a view from the rear bumper of the Velocity Sim Labs number 83 of Nathan J. Allen. What a view from the inside of the cockpit of Grant Matterford as he sends it to the inside. Makes use of the fresh rubber to get a move done. Not quite done, as Nathan Allen's done a great job getting back to the gas on the high side. Has Grant Matterford's fuel-saving strategies come back to haunt him? It's going to take him a lot longer to complete that pass than he would have liked. Allen will finally yield the position on the way into turn number 1 to start lap number 53. Keep your eyes out for the leaders at this point in time. Hayden Norris wasn't leading at any stage. You thought he might have been in a tricky, compromised position. Not so the case. He's now your race leader. Daniel Weaver, only 1 second through the rearview mirror. And Braden Martin is only a few seconds back up the road as well. So keep your eyes out for that one, because Martin will be on a barnstormer. He has 5 laps fresher tyres, and he will be coming. So keep your eyes out for the lap times from him as they cross the start-finish line each time by. 31.859 for Norris, 31.897 for Weaver, 31.644. 2.5 tenths of a second, so a quarter of a second is the margin currently that Martin is making up. Might be an outside shot at a win here. Finally made his way onto the podium last week, did Braden Martin at the Super Speedway of Daytona. Could be that finally he's going to park the Locked On Lads entry in victory lane. So we'll keep our eyes on him. And he is closing. Aaron Hayden. I have not noticed that Hayden Norris has actually gained a whole host of spots. So qualifying not the strong suit of the number 20 machine, but doesn't matter. There's 75 laps of racing and only one of your 2 qualifying laps will count. So he's done. Just so we're clear, Mr. Man behind the scene on the cameras, can the stream hear your voice? They can't. Okay, so Nathan Howard was unable to make comment on the stream this evening due to you don't want to hear him. It doesn't sound pretty. Just reminded me in the back of my mind how many races this season we've gone to NASCAR overtime. He wants to see another one, so we'll keep. It's been happening just about every week. Indeed, last week out, remember that Dylan DeBono ran out of fuel with the finish line in sight because he didn't add enough for NASCAR overtime. drivers out there, if you're hearing, Nathan Howard just said NASCAR overtime would make him feel better. But Peter Morris, if you're, it's going to be Peter Morris. If Peter Morris, if you're listening, NASCAR overtime. I mean, I'm glad that you can't be heard. I don't want that to be heard on the stream. Anyway, Paul Bryan's on a recovery mission. He's already picked off a whole host of places. That's another one just in front of him that you saw out the windscreen. Will be Glenn McLeod, half a second up the road. A lot of work here for Paul Bryan to do. Unfortunate the way things trended for him, but that's racing. Gets back in, gets the seatbelts done back up just that little bit tighter, and he'll keep on trucking. He's not leading the championship for no reason. He's shown up every week, and he's put in clean, consistent finishes. NASCAR, that's all you need to do. You don't need to win every round. In fact, you don't need to win any rounds to win the championship. You just need to be there every single step of the way. Evan Horsfield's up a whole host of positions. The guy that won last week from Daytona International Speedway. He's managed to climb himself up into 6th position. So that's 4 spots that he's climbed so far. Grant Matterford's up 5 spots as well. Biggest loser so far tonight, Jeremy Bush. Actually, my apologies. It's going to be Aaron Hayden that's down 8 spots. Would have started P9 for the 21 machine. And Riot Sim Racing entry has lost a whole host of positions. Be 5 on the screen for Evan Horsfield, 271 on the side of the truck, just because of the way that they do their paints. That's a timing error. Pay no attention to the 5 that you see to the left at the bottom of your screen. Just ignore that. Just pretend that doesn't exist. Tell you what, Nathan, I'll do you a gift. I'll get that number fixed for you for next week right now. Because it's been bothering me the whole time as well, and I haven't thought about it, so how about that? Done. It's set. It'll be fixed for next week. It's only taken us 8 rounds to get that one right. Whoa! Update on the race scenario. Daniel Weaver has just made his way to pit lane. He's been strong on the pit lane entry. We're on lap number 63, so he's come down for fresh rubber. He is going to have to kick that barn door wide open to make it. But the benefit here is that he's got the opportunity to make those tires make a difference. So, remember we've been talking so far tonight, 2.5 seconds of tire fall off along the fuel stint. If he makes one of those, what's he got? He's going to lose 14 seconds idle time sitting in the pits, plus another 20 or 30 seconds coming to pit lane. So 2.5 times, I think it's about 40 seconds to make that pit stop. What's that? 20 laps. So he's not got enough laps to get it done. But if everyone else has to come down and take that splash, he is on the best strategy of the lot of them. The only guy that'll potentially beat him at this stage will be Braden Martin, and if Braden Martin doesn't take tyres, that's how he wins this motor race. If Braden Martin accidentally forgets to tell his pit crew to not change those tyres, he will be, well, he'll take a splash of fuel, but he'll be sat there for 14 seconds waiting for the tyres to be stuck on the car. Matterford now all over the rear bumper of Nathan Allen. So I believe that's Allen actually making a spot up at this point in time. So Grant Matterford's made his way up to P number 8 on that fuel save strategy. Keep your eyes on Grant Matterford. If a splash and dash is required, it's Matterford's race to lose, in my mind, because a splash is going to take you about 30 seconds. He's only about 20 seconds, 25 seconds off the race lead. So Matterford at this point in time has just got to make sure he makes the finish line. That's his only mission. That's all he's got to do, and he is on track to do that. We could see the Pulse Racing Team entry return to the series after a few weeks away. Again, life gets in the way sometimes. Hayden Norris, now race leader, will make his way onto pit lane, and I wonder if Braden Martin will follow him in. Indeed, Braden Martin has followed him onto pit lane. So Braden Martin has said, you know what? I need to make this stop. I'm going to make it now. We may as well make some advantage out of those tyres. I think he's left at a splash too late. I would have split this last stint in 2, run about 17 laps, come in, run 17 laps again. then you don't have to do those last, or what is it, 3-4 laps on the stint. He's left it a fraction too late. He's only got 8 laps to do on these tyres, but if we get a late race restart, he's the one that's going to be in the hot seat. These guys that do come now for tyres. And did Martin take tyres? Braden Martin is still in pit lane. He'll roll out in a few moments. Watch that left-hand side. That's it. Yep. So NASCARs, the pit stops they do is they carry a jack around both sides of the car. They'll jack one side up. They generally run around to the right-hand side of the car. Jack that side up. Rip 2 tires off. Put 2 tires on. Sprint. Unjack the car. Sprint back around the other side of the car. Jack the left-hand side of the car up. Put 2 tires on and send it. That's the pit stop scene. Yep. It's well, you can ask the questions, Nathan Howard. The chat won't be able to hear them, but I can answer them for you. Yep, it's a manual pit stop. It's a manual jack. So it's literally the same way that you would lift your car up at home. Big, long pole to jack your car up. Instead of sitting there with the ratchet, you go down, up, down, up, down, up about 10 or 20 times to try and get the car jacked up just that few inches. And these ones, one big long arm, and they do one big pump. The jackman gets around there, gets it quickly, gets it underneath, jacks the car up on the right-hand side. With these ones, it's still 5 lug nuts. So is exactly what the pit stops sound like. They'll jack the car back down, get around the other side of the car, do the other side. Big long pump on the jack. And another set of piston. What are they called? Pneumatic guns to undo the lug nuts. Tire off, tire on. 5 more lug nuts. Send it. Rattle guns. That's the one. Peter Morris, I tell you what, has made his way up into P number 3. Cars starting to pit off of turn 4 at this point in time. A couple slow cars down there. So if Peter Morris can make it through to the end of this race, he is an outside shot. And I tell you what, the sipper meter would go absolutely ballistic for Peter Morris. Grab the clutch, son. Grab the clutch. Make that end of the race. The big fuel saver is on the entry. You want to basically go full throttle through turn number 1 most laps as you possibly can. So it's grab the clutch about 150 meters out from the turn. You just sit in that clutch, never touch the brake. Chris Thornton, fresh tires, is going to send it to the outside of him. That's what it's like when a car catches and passes you. It's like you're standing still. It's nearly like your multi-class racing is what it feels like sometimes. Such is the lap time fall off. We'll keep our eyes out. 31.297 at this point in time for Hayden Norris. 31.591 for Weaver. So Weaver's starting to fall a long way off. Paul Bryan, 31.745. Grant Matterford's still out in the lead. Evan Horswell says he can't make it. He'll make his way on a pit lane. He throws away potentially a podium. Not quite able to do the business here tonight in terms of fuel saving. We are now in sight of the finish line. Hayden Norris, the leader of the cars that have taken fuel, have taken their stop, have taken that set of tyres. He is 7.5 seconds off of the rear bumper of Peter Morris. But Peter Morris, I'm not sure if he'll make it on fuel. He's got 8 seconds to play with, down to 7 seconds to play with. If he wants to hang on to this one, you run a slow lap time, but there's only 4 laps left to run. Horswell rejoins the track, so he's now done his final stop. Grant Matterford is 1.5 seconds ahead. If he can hang on to this thing, if he can save enough fuel, there he is in the top lane. Look at how long he's out of the throttle there. Look at how early the flames started spitting out the side. You'd be able to see Peter Morris in the background of that shot. 4.5 seconds, Morris is in. Morris cannot make it on fuel. This is going to feel like an eternity as he trundles down pit lane, just 2 laps shy of the finish. 8 seconds now is the margin for Grant Matterford. It does not matter. He can give away 6.5 of those full course yellow NASCAR overtime it is. And Grant Matterford will not have the fuel to make this. That's a blown tire. Hit the wall off of turn number, I want to say that's turn number 2. Heading down the back stretch, loses it. We've had a great race the whole night long. Grant Matterford had this thing, run 1, done 5 kinds. of 1. And now the green-white checkers. Matterford's going to be just about out of fuel as he trundles back into pit lane here. He will need to stop to take a splash to get to the end. He will have the only car in the field that will have a fresh set of tires for this one. The only car. Everyone else has done their final tire stops, and we are getting set to go racing with an SRW TV overtime. There he is. He'll peel off to pit lane. That is going to feel horrible. Well, they would have only had enough fuel for the end of the race. They would not have been expecting a green-white checkers. So if Grant Matterford maintains track position on them, but he won't, he's got 4 tires to do. He's got a 14-second stop. He's going to feel sat there for an eternity as he watches cars trundle down pit lane, but at the same time, he's got fresh rubber. Having said that, this will be the only time tonight he'll be pushing. So does he have the pace he needs to get by these guys? Everyone else on track is going to feel like they're standing still. Braden Martin just got a penalty for speeding on pit lane. So the sound that was made as Grant Matterford peeled off into pit lane, he was not looking forward to having to hear this sound, I tell you that much, but it's the and they fire it up before they put the gun actually onto the lug nuts. They don't actually release the trigger on the rattle guns. They just move it around the wheel and just on the nuts because they don't have enough time to pull the trigger, let go of the trigger, pull the trigger again. They literally... Five lug nuts per tire. 5 lug nuts per tire. Well, if they're a lap down here, they'll be forced to go to the tail end of the line. So, how far back has Grant Matterford gone? So that's... So 8th is a long way back. If we get 2 attempts at the green-white checkers, he's in with a shout. If he manages to get a run here, so the drivers are just talking about in server. There is the Geico restart zone. You'll see a blue section on the front stretch, which is the Geico restart zone. That's a new iRacing feature that's just been added as a part of this latest update. It is not in effect yet, and we'll discuss whether that will be used for next season. You don't change the rules halfway through a season. You do not. It's already on the track. You'll actually get to see it. So if you keep an eye on Daniel Weaver, as we come off of turn 4, look for a blue zone on the outside barrier that says Geico. And look for a blue zone on... So that's Kentucky there on the outside. You see a blue painted zone down to the left-hand side of the track. So... Is that it there? That's it. That's the Geico restart zone right there. Cars must go in that zone. Actually, sorry, my apologies. It's that one. Problem with the sponsors having control of sponsorship around these tracks is that there's multiple sections of the track that look like it might be the Geico restart zone. So what will happen is, as of next season in iRacing, they're going to walk through the way that this will work. Instead of it being in the leader's hands the instant that pace car jerks to the left and pulls itself down pit lane, it will be you must maintain pacing speed until you enter that blue zone. So pacing speed for this track is 89 kilometers an hour. Once you enter that blue zone, the leader has control, but he must go before the end of that blue zone or else the green flag will fly and everyone can go. If he speeds up in advance of the Geico restart zone, he will receive a black flag and will have to serve either a drive-through or a stop and hold for 40-second penalty is how that will work. But what it does do is it provides a far more consistent restart zone from track to track, and the drivers have a visual signal on the track that shows them exactly when they can go. At some tracks, we experienced at Pocono at one point this season, the pace car pulls off and you've got about a second before you're going. At other tracks, you're sitting there waiting for 5, 10, 15 seconds. If we add the new version of Phoenix, you're sitting there waiting. The pace car peels off on the exit of turn 2, and the leader can go anytime from there all the way back around until they cross the start-finish line when the green flag flies. Daniel Weaver has not had a great run so far tonight. He's on tyres put on lap 63. Riley Jones has got fairly fresh tyres on the outside. Lap 67, great rig start to the inside. The 84 machine of Glenn McLeod gets a huge getaway. He's going to slot himself into second place. He's got a great set of tyres underneath him as well. Grant Matterford, keep your eyes on him. Way up in the background of the shot. Braden Martin's in front of him. Matterford's got to find the gap. Yellow flag will need to fly. He needs to make some spots up there. Nearly 3 wide. Huge accident at the back. Will they get back to the start-finish line? Matterford's got a whole host of speed on the bottom. Trying to take positions away. They're going to get back to the start-finish line. Somebody slow on the front stretch. Might be out of fuel. Might be. Riley Jones indeed is Riley Jones as he starts to slip back. Now Matterford's got the rubber. Martin's going to send it to the inside of the car directly ahead of him. I think that's Nathan Allen. Nathan Allen's managed to make his way up in the 3rd spot. Glenn McLeod's going to try and go for the win here. This is it. This corner decides the motor race. On the entry to turn number 3, Glenn McLeod's too far back. It's going to be Daniel Weaver that'll win it. Who's going to finish P3? Martin gets the run off of turn number 4 to the inside. He's going to clear. Here comes Grant Matterford. Matterford picks up one at the line, will manage to get one spot back over the 20 machine, takes that one away, and the car losing spots on the top side. Unfortunate for him, but Braden Martin will make it back-to-back podiums. Daniel Weaver steps onto the top step for the first time this season, and it's been a long time between drinks for Glenn McLeod, but he will put a stamp on the podium. I feel he was on the podium back at our season opener in Charlotte, and what a way to finish it. We've gone NASCAR overtime, I think, 5 weeks in a row now, and every time it has delivered. Got to feel for Grant Matterford. Got to feel for Grant Matterford. He had that race, one, 5 kinds of done, and he will walk away with a P5. What a run from the driver of the 79 machine. The only driver to commit to the fuel strategy, the only driver to hold the lead by 10 seconds going into the closing laps. And to be robbed at the line, he's going to find Chris Thornton and ask him what happened there for sure. The tracks apparently look absolutely fantastic from a producer's standpoint under lights. What another stunner here. I don't think we have another series at SRW TV where there have been so many races where the winner has not been decided. You would have thought for sure Grant Matterford had that one. Grant Matterford would have thought for sure he had that one. Braden Martin was doing all he possibly could, didn't have enough left in the tank to grab back any further up. Glenn McLeod, what a run from him. Had enough fuel left in the truck, didn't have to pit there at our final caution, got it done in P number 2. Right, Sim Racing boys have a hoot every single week, and somebody's blown an engine, somebody's run out of fuel, and Hayden Norris will push him back home once again. Well, time to probably talk to our podium. We'll see if they're available for us, and I tell you what, I don't think Braden Martin will be complaining about talking to us 2 weeks in a row. We'll see if we can grab him here in a moment. I think he's disappeared. I think he's gone. Just start fining them for not showing up on the podium. You know what? He's actually off celebrating with the Riot Sim Racing boys. He just went down there to jump in and say hello to those boys. So he's actually out and communicating with them. Well, sucked in, Braden. You're going to come and have to talk to us. So Braden Martin, stop conversing with your fellow competitors and come have a chat to us instead.
How you doing, boys?
Yeah, not bad, mate. When we started to head into this race and that sun started to set, you look like you had a strategy. You look like you had a bit of a plan. And best plans sometimes go awry in the form of Paul Bryan. A little bit of miscommunication there with the pit lane entry?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I just couldn't hear it in game, but yeah, he just came down, and he actually ran pretty wide, I thought, on that corner anyway. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise to see him come back down into the pit lane. But yeah, it was not the nicest way to finish that middle stint, because that was probably my best stint of the race and really set me up until I tried to butcher it by missing my pit bay by a little bit.
Mate, you committed to the strategy early on. It looked like you were actually trying to, we're just witnessing what we thought was a small display of skill there from Hayden Norris has actually proved to us that it wasn't a small display of skill. It was actually a small display of failure. But that's something completely different. Good driver skill. Mate, I thought you were committed to that strategy too. I thought you were on the same strategy that Grant Matterford was on.
Yeah, I don't know. The boys pitted maybe like a few laps earlier than me in the first stint. And then in that middle stint, the first stint, I'll be honest, I haven't really done any practice here. So the first stint, I really was struggling with turn 3 and 4. And about towards the end of the stint, I started to work out what you actually needed to do. And then in that middle stint, I made really good use of the tyres and managed to make them last. And just that last half of the stint, I was just catching the front 3 all the way up until I caught up to Paul and was going to be, taking the lead as he pitted. And then, yeah, just unfortunately all that, like I said, all that time that I'd made up, I threw away in the pit stop by going too far forward. And then I thought it was all over, and then I was starting to catch the boys again, was on for a third and was really happy, and then the yellow flag came out and I didn't have enough fuel for a green-white checker, so then I was in despair again, but then managed to snatch it away at the end there, which was nice because it was felt like a little bit of redemption from Charlotte, where I sort of lost it in the last lap, the podium place.
I've just done some quick head maths, and as all head maths can be, this could be wrong, but I've got you leading the championship before that drop round is applied. How would you feel knowing that you are currently, prior to the drop round, being the season 1 leader of the championship heading into the last 2 rounds of the season? That's a huge achievement. When he's rolled out at Charlotte for the first race of the season, probably not expecting to be doing this well.
No, not at all. Was just sort of, I think first race was like stoked to get that 4th, really wanted to get podium, but the goal was just to, be consistent and get top 10s. And yeah, obviously it helps having Lachlan miss the last couple of rounds, which was a bit of a shame. It's nice to be able to test yourself against, the best people. But yeah, I'd be thrilled if I can keep it up and manage to somehow fluke that. It'll be, it'll be amazing.
All right, well, with you as the points leader heading into the last 2 rounds, 2 rounds left of the season, does that change the thinking a little bit? All of a sudden, a new season of iRacing gets underway, and all you're practicing, all you're turning laps in is what is it? You're in a Chevrolet? The Chevy Silverado is the only car that Braden Martin drives all week for the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, honestly, this is the first time I've turned the sim on since last Monday. I've been that flat out with work, so it's at the moment, I guess it is technically the only car I've driven anyway. But yeah, no, nothing changes. I think, like I said, I went into the season not really expecting too much, and just to learn and get better. That was the main goal, and I think I've driven pretty sensibly, and that consistency's been there. So that'll be the aim. Just stay consistent, stay out of trouble. And yeah, try to limit the mistakes.
We were under that last green-white checkers finish there. Were you actually expecting, given that Grant Matterford came down, had one set of tyres sort of left over, were you expecting to be a little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, well, as soon as I knew I had the inside line, it was basically just get straight up the inside as soon as possible, and try and force the cars on the outside to take that sort of compromised line. And then there was, I think it was Grant, or there was another car behind as well that seemed like they had fresh tyres, and I sort of opened the door and then realised I needed to close it really, really quickly, and I think it actually checked them up a little bit, which gave me a little bit of breathing room for sort of the last turns 2 and 3. Turns 3 and 4 on the last part of the last lap. So, yeah, it was really, really obvious who had tyres, and I think someone went to go up the inside, just managed to get the car down in the way, and that kind of, helped me stay up where I was.
All right, mate. Well, obviously the podcast has been put on pause as life takes control for, unfortunately, Wilco. Maybe you'll have to tell him with the luck that you're having. Podcast does need to stay on pause for a few more weeks, at least until the end of the season.
Yeah, I might have to take a hiatus myself, just even if it's back, just to get this championship wrapped up. Nah, it's been good fun, and like I said, the best thing is I feel like I'm learning and I feel like I'm getting better each week, which is nice.
All right, mate. Well, your opportunity to shout out to all the people who put so much success so far this season behind the wheel of that number 09 Locked On Lads entry.
Yeah, shout out to all the Locked On lads and Locked On Black Sheep Racing boys. Obviously, shout out to the sponsors, Brewster.coffee. And I guess just a little shout out for the team. We're going to be doing a fundraiser for Cure Cancer for the Spa 24 Hour that's coming up soon. So we should, all things going well, have a team competing in that. So it'd be nice if people could get around a good cause.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a ton of support heading your way from the Sim Racing World TV. New championship leader, Braden Martin. Been a long time since I think you've heard that, and I think its celebration is going to continue a long way into the night with 2 races left to go.
First time I've heard that, I reckon.
Congratulations, mate. It's been a long run so far, and I think 2 more weeks it's going to be a longer run to go. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers, thanks, boys.
Well, it's been a long time between drinks for Glenn McLeod, and it's been a long time between drinks for that team as a whole. So it's a great opportunity to get Glenn up into the broadcast booth. Glenn, Scott, and Nathan up in here. Just don't mind the coffee, mate. I hope you got your mask on standby. Unfortunately, we're down a commentator tonight in terms of the man flu, but not down a driver, because I think that's one of the better drives I've seen you put on so far this season.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. That was. I thought I threw that away, but that was actually turned out to be pretty good result for us.
Well, I mean, it's a strategy curveball tonight. If you had to make it on 2 pit stops, you had to fuel save like mad. Only one man in the field managed to do it, and only one man in the field feels a little bit aggrieved that there was a green-white checker. The rest of us are over here celebrating what a race to the flag. It was a little bit tricky. You look like you might have gotten checked up a little bit, but it's good to have. Daniel Weaver is actually your teammate. I just finally realised that, isn't he?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. 1-2 for us tonight. 1-2 for us tonight. Yes.
Mate, you've been running a little bit solo the last few weeks, so I mean, you've got the teammate back there, and it's back to the top of the time tree.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the other boys have been busy with work commitments and other events they've had to attend to. Unfortunately, I won't be able to race next week I think we're in Montegui because I'll be away for work. So
no.
I think so I think Weaver's going to have to hold the fort for us for next week. But yeah, we were both Weaver obviously put it on pole, which is really good for him. I put it, I think it was P3. Really good opening first laps, and then after that we just dropped like a rock. And as soon as those tyres, we put fresh ones on, a couple of laps, and everyone else would come pit in, and then we'll just drop back again. So we got really lucky with that green-white checker as well.
Do you think you had? Where do you think things were going to shake out for you if we didn't end up with that green-white checkered finish there?
I probably would have ended up 7th or 8th, I reckon. And Weaver would have been. He still would have been top 5, but I would have. I reckon 7th or 8th by the end of that, if that had gone the way it was, or even lower, 9th, 10th even.
Well, mate, sometimes things fly away. It's been a pleasure actually watching you, because I think you've been one of the cleaner drivers in the field too. Just sort of taking your time, looking at the opportunities, picking it off when it comes. It'll be disappointing when we head to Motegi next week to not actually have you along for the ride.
Thanks, mate. That really means a lot. Only being on a single screen as well, I try and...
Oh, that's difficult. That is really difficult.
Yeah. I try and run as clean as I can and give everyone the room that they need. So for you to say that, Scott, with your experience, that really means a lot.
Well, I mean, talk to us this way, because I mean, it's the way that I started sim racing. It's the way that a lot of people would have started sim racing. A lot of people, their sim racing journey really begins perhaps with your F1 games over on the console, with your Project Cars, your Forza Horizons, these sorts of style games where, well, you can only really have one screen, and in fact, you've not even got a wheel and pedals. But then you step up into iRacing, probably a little bit too far. Project Cars might be the next level. You might grab yourself a wheel, but you're still limited to that single monitor. The blind spots, that peripheral vision, is so critical.
That's right.
Keeping yourself clean in the NASCAR, isn't it? It
is, absolutely, and to rely on the spotter as well to tell you when you got a car next to you or when you're clear is relatively important as well. Particularly in super speedways, I noticed when we're at Daytona, like I just couldn't say like if I want to change lanes, for instance, I couldn't change straight away because I had to make sure, you know, that instinct, make sure you do your head check type of thing before you change lanes. But no, this series is a lot of fun. I walk away every week with a smile on my face. So this has been a lot of fun, and I'm disappointed I got to miss next week, but I'm keen for Indy for the final.
Mate, let's talk about that. Perhaps as a season of a whole. I want to sort of ask you, what's the most critical thing that you think that you've learned about NASCAR racing? Perhaps was it at the start of things, everyone sort of sat down and said, "Oh, it's just turning left," and that's really about all there is. I mean, I think a few people have had that view of NASCAR racing really shaken up, because I think a lot of people are starting to respect that this is probably one of the most complex forms of racing out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I've only been doing oval racing for about 6 months now. Another teammate of mine, Brett Hobbs, got me into it actually. So we did a couple of rounds of Van's car and just instantly got hooked. So when this opportunity came up, jumped on it straight away. A couple of the other boys did as well, obviously. But yeah, every week everybody's just getting better and better. There are quite a few guys now who I feel like I can trust. I can race. He'll give you that room, that space, and still race you hard. So shout out to everyone in this league. It's just such a great beginner league. Even though, you know, there are some drivers that are obviously more advanced than others, but it's I can't stress enough. It's a lot of fun.
In terms of things, I mean, I'm actually looking forward to the tail end of season 2. Actually, and Nathan actually alongside him in the broadcasting booth. I know he's obviously not talking so far tonight, but he specified as well tonight. He saw everyone doing laps. He jumped in to do test laps with everyone out on track. So I think I don't know how well we're going to go finding broadcasters for next season, given they're both going to be on the track with everyone. But everyone's interested. Everyone's loving it. Look, I mean, the whole design of the league was to be an entry-level oval series. Has it achieved those goals?
I think absolutely, and then some. I think, like we have had a couple of I guess caution fest races here and there, but that's all part of it. Yeah. Some of the tracks I was like, oh yeah, I haven't raced there before, I'll give that a crack. For instance, tonight was the first time a proper race at Kentucky for me. But yeah, again, it's just learning those different configurations, you know, going from a super speedway to like a normal speedway, and then from a speedway to a short track again. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to next season.
So tonight, that was the first time we really had you in changeable conditions, going from sunset through completely to into the dark. We did have a little bit of that, Charlotte, but it was more sunset style racing. Did that add another variable that was something completely new?
Yeah, especially in qualifying as well. I think I did a 38 in practice, put it on top of the time boards, and then struggled to replicate that in qualifying just because of that sun into turn 3. Just couldn't see your entry point as well as what you could. But yeah, that sunset with the HDR, it looks good, but bloody hell, it blinds you.
All right, mate. Well, opportunity now to say a big thank you and shout out. I think we've taken up enough of your time. I think Daniel's sitting up there going, "Oh, he's taken up all this interview time."
Yeah, he's waiting. Congratulations to Weaver again. Congratulations to Braden Martin for 3rd place. He's been driving really well. To all our sponsors, everyone back at Send It Sim Sports, Hobbs Trenching and Boring, PPS Setup Shop, ProZerve Finance, Sydney Computers, AJ Insurance, Transform Media, Pixelbox, CD Cinematography, and 27 Designs.
Actually, on that note, I do want to say a personal thank you to Sydney Computers, who have actually given me a fair bit of support over the last couple of days, dealing with some internet gripes. Heading into the even faster form of racing, which is tomorrow in the IndyCar world. So, big shout out to those guys. They've been phenomenal and supportive. So, congratulations once again, Glenn. The racing's been too good. I'm tripping over my words, mate. Have a great night.
Thanks, boys. Thank you.
All right, we'll catch you again in 2 weeks' time at the season finale. And finally, it's been a long time between drinks. Well, he's clearly not Peter Morris, because it hasn't been a long time between drinks for Peter Morris. He's on the sipper meter right throughout the race. But Daniel Weaver, Daniel, I think your teammates just about said it all, mate. Stunning race, put it on top of the time charts in qualifying. So you knew the 1 lap pace was good. You just needed a green white checkers to really prove that.
To be honest, I just don't know where that lap come from in quali. Like I was struggling to get the line in warm up. Like I literally bought the track at 20 past 7 or something tonight to jump on. So done a few laps in in practice and sort of knew what line I had to take. I just couldn't hit the line, and then just pulled it out of somewhere in quali and put it up there. And then yeah, like just I don't know, I just went too hard at the start, I think, and just burnt my tyres up, hit the wall as well, and yeah, car just wasn't right after that.
I think we need to put you in touch with Sergio Perez after his tyre running from the weekend. Look, it's been tricky. I actually threw this one into the schedule because this is I actually suck at this place, but this is my favourite place on iRacing to go oval racing. It's got such a different level of corners. Turn 1, turn 2 are just about wide open, and then turn 3, turn 4 is almost kind of like a road corner. Would you describe it that way?
Yeah, you've got to really back it up, push out to turn 4. So yeah, you've just got to do that bit of a lift, get the car down to the apex, and once you know you're going to hit the apex, get back on the gas and run it out high on the exit. But yeah, turn the wall at turn 4 does definitely come up on you if you come in too hot and don't slow down enough. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then it's about building the throttle right the way through turn 3, which is it's not a road course style practice. Normally, you're either building quite quickly in terms of the throttle, not building gradually to try and keep the car to the bottom of the racetrack. So there's all of these little finicky bits and pieces, and then you've got the finicky bit and piece that is the tire saving, which you obviously struggled with, but you managed to, as the sun set, seem to come to life a little bit more in the number 2 machine.
Yeah, I think like in the first stint, I just absolutely cooked them early because I was out to like a 1.1 at the start, I think, and then knew straight away my tyres were starting to go off and could just see them mow me down and then touch the wall as well, which didn't help. But yeah, in that second stint, I started to save them a bit better, and rather than running right down on the bottom of the track, just running that lane up and backing it up a little bit, coming into the corners just to conserve tyres. So I still had a bit towards the end, especially with pitting 4 laps. I think it was 4 laps before a lot of the other guys did on the first stop. So I knew I really had to save them so that when they caught me, I wasn't just going to drop like a rock back through the field again. And then on that last set, like I think it was Hayden that was leading at the time when the yellow come out. I don't know how he saved his tyres like he did, but he was just gapping me like no tomorrow. But yeah, props to him. Unlucky to him that the yellow come out. But yeah, like I was just with 2 laps to go, I knew that all I had to do was just jump him on the start, and I had it.
And talk to it. It's a little bit different because obviously you pit on 62 coming to 63 there for your final set of tyres. So still a 12-lap run to the end if it went green, but it didn't go green, and there's obviously the caution. You managed that quite well, but it's tricky. And how did you find the curveball tonight where we ended up with a race where all you had to do was save a lap of fuel right the way throughout to get to the end? That in itself was, again, just another thing that I don't think you guys have had to deal with tonight. Did you enjoy the change up of strategy? Something that's quite a little bit more complex. The tyres go away when you pit is incredibly important to the race scenario as well.
Yeah, I didn't even look at trying to make it on a single stop or the 2 stop, whatever it was, because like in practice and stuff, I think my telemetry was telling me I was only going to get 23 laps out of a tank, so that would have been 23, 46. Yeah, so 69 I would have been at, and I would have had to. I would have been
shy.
Would have been 6 shy, so I didn't even contemplate it. It was
at any stage, was there a thought to sort of split that final, once you sort of got to, I think it was lap 46 or whatever, sort of split that last stint in 2 and go maybe 17-17, and that way you got the most out of both sets of tyres?
I was thinking about that, but then at the same time, I sort of thought to myself, if it does end up a green white checker, I've got that many laps on me tyres, I'm just going to be a sit and duck. So yeah, that's what I pitted when I did, and I actually stuffed my pit stop up. I lost like 4 seconds in the stop. I didn't have full fuel, and I was spamming the button to try to put full fuel in, and it had already fueled me and then dropped me once I went back and realised what I'd done. So I lost 4 seconds there. So I was grateful that there was that I did actually put that fuel in. Otherwise, I definitely would have been out of fuel. But yeah, grateful that I just that green white checker at the end, like as I said, like I probably would have been third because I think it was Braden that was behind me. He was coming quick on me, and so I thought he was going to get me, but definitely thought I was in for a top three. But yeah, it is what it is, and I'm stoked to come away with the win.
I mean, how good is this? Return to the series, return to form, return to the top step of the podium. It's been interesting racing right the way throughout. The most important thing is you sound like you've enjoyed yourself. Do you think you've gotten everything out of it that you wanted at the top end of the season?
Oh, like as Glenn was saying before, just work commitments. I'm up at 3 for work, so if I have a bad Monday at work, then I'm generally pretty tired by the time the race comes around. So that's why I've skipped a few. But the series is great. I've run in other NASCAR series, and there's been a couple of guys that you just can't race side by side, door to door with, because they just turn down on you or come up on you and put you in the wall. But this series is pretty good. I don't think I've had any real issues with anybody. Just not giving you the space to race cleanly. Obviously, if you hit the wall and you come down, then yeah, you can't expect people to not clean you up if you do that, which I've done a couple of times. But the series is good. It's a shame some of the quick guys weren't here today because
no, don't say that. Don't say that. They weren't here. You got the win. That's their problem.
would have loved to have seen how I fared against them, but you can only race what's in front of you. So I'm happy with the win. I just would have loved to have seen how I went against some of those other guys.
All right, mate. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you when you are obviously available. I hope you can make the next 2 weeks, because next week I've actually got to come up with a setup. There isn't a setup that exists for Motegi, so I'm going to do some playing around to see if we can get something working about that. Congratulations on the win here tonight, and finally your opportunity to thank all the guys over at Send It Sim Sports that make it possible for you.
Yeah. So just all the lads at Send It Sim Sports are all supportive of what we do and willing to help out. Hobbs Trenching and Boring. PPS setup, so I know that it's a fixed setup league, but PPS setup helps us with all our other stuff that we do. ProServe Finance, Sydney Computers, AJ Insurance Services, Transform Media, Pixel Blocks, CD Simtography, and 27 Designs.
Congratulations once again to the number 2 machine, who makes his way down into victory lane here from the Kentucky Motor Speedway. He knew what the 11 secret herbs and spices were, and he knew what the 11 secret lug nuts were on the car to get that pit stop done quickly and in time to get him back out on the racing circuit. Daniel Weaver, tonight's winner. Well, Nathan, that about wraps it up here. I know obviously the audience can't hear you from home. You're going to get a whole bunch of rest in, I hope, before next week, because we make our first and only excursion out of the United States of America. We're heading to Japan, baby, to the Motegi Twin Rings. And you know who's at fault for us to sending us outside of the United States of America? Well, it's an American invasion. Somebody should have told me at the start of the season before we set off that I might need to make all of the tracks in America. In fact, I think somebody at the start of the season probably looked at the NASCAR league and went, there's no ovals outside of America. We're good here. We don't need to say anything to him. Yeah, well, there is one, and I've lobbed it on the schedule. So the longest trip between races will take place between now and next week, and the sun will really be up high in the sky because no lights at the Motegi Oval. You're going to see some of the most interesting racing with one really tight corner at one end of the track and one really wide open corner at the opposite end at the only 1 mile, actually, sorry, my apologies, one of 2 1-mile speedways on the circuit, because we went to Phoenix earlier in the season. If you've enjoyed everything you've seen here tonight, a big shout out to all of our sponsors that do make things possible. Shibby's going to read them off to me in my ear as I read them off, but we've got DSL Welding Services, DragonRC, and the Promo Department. Those are your sponsors that make the sim racing world streams possible. Those are the sponsors that make the SRW NASCAR Truck Series available to you. Don't forget, join us once again tomorrow. We've got a special presentation to you coming live from about 11:45 midday as practice gets underway. In my own personal series, I'll be heading stateside in IndyCar to rack it up with the best of the best in the world of IndyCar. And then tomorrow night, keep your eyes peeled back here once again for the SR8 Radical Series. Not 100% sure where we're heading. I know that it's somewhere within the US of A. Somebody should have told me that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another fantastic race, another NASCAR overtime, another different winner. Who will win next week's race? Will it be you? It's too late to enter. It's not going to be you. See you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night.